If you've ever had to help old Blanchy get her oats, you might have run into one of these guys. Harvest Watchers. Scarecrows on steroids gone absolutely apeshit. I'm running a Warcraft DnD campaign and in the process of putting together some proper Warcraft minis. So, without further ado, let me show you how I painted this straw-stuffed slaughter machine. So here's our starting point. Sand and cat litter fixed to the base with glue and then sprayed down with a gray Krylon primer. Much like the Murlocs I previously painted, this mini is from Warcraft Rumble, which Blizzard has released the game models for as free STLs, link in the description. So I start with a mixture of 2 parts royal purple and 3 parts neutral gray to paint the head, sleeves, shoulder shroud, and the pants. I'm using a 5 brush for painting everything at this stage, just to keep things moving. You know, I could have sworn these guys had more green in their design, but I'm using this image as reference, so purples, reds, browns, and grays it is. And while that mix dries, I'm going to paint the base with flat earth. Then I paint black-red on the shirt, shoes, and hat. My next paint is beige-brown, which I use for the fence posts coming out of his shoulders. The claws I'm going to paint with a coat of rough iron, currently one of my favorite metallic paints. All of the rope portions I'm going to paint with buff. When I paint the band around his hat, I switch to a 2-0 brush. I did a pretty messy job of it, but I can clean it up with more black-red afterwards. It's okay to be messy when you're painting your minis, especially early on in the process. My last step for the base coats is just a little bit of yellow ochre on the bits of hay sticking out here and there. Next up, I'm slathering the model with a thin coat of Agrax Earthshade and covering the model head to toe. Now, after some drying time, we're going to build the colors back up. I start with a purple gray. Another mix of 4 parts neutral gray, 1 part royal purple, and then 2 to 3 parts of glaze medium. I'm trying to hit everything but the obvious recesses. Generally, wash will pool in these areas, so they'll appear darker anyway, and you can use those spots as a guide. Next up is the torso and shoes, which I'm painting with flat earth. With the hat, however, I'm mixing in a little bit more of that black-red. I want the hat to ultimately be the reddest part of the model. I like the color on the underside of the brim though, so I'm going to leave that as it is. Now, I want to put a little bit of green into the color of the wood. So I mixed up a little US olive drab with beige brown. I pulled the lines in a way that follow the plane of wood and suggest a little bit of wood grain. A quick dry brush of gunmetal over the claws. And back over the raised areas of the ropes with buff straight from the bottle. Then just pick out the little bits of hay with yellow ochre. Now, the base coats are done, but there are a few things I want to address to bring it closer to the reference. I want to make the hat even redder, so I'm going to go back and lightly glaze some of the interior spaces of the brim and the top with black-red. There's also some little bits above the shoulder which I now realize are wood, so I'm going to paint them to match the rest of the wood. Alright, let's get into the fine-tuning. I mix flat earth with amaranth red, hitting the areas of the torso that would catch the light, the top of the belly and the chest, for example. We're applying the same technique to the gray areas, neutral gray mixed with glaze medium. And once that's dry, I'm going to start highlighting. I'm going to start with the gray areas using Highlight German Tank Crew. I edge highlight and pick out some of the more raised areas. If I move away from the edges, I make sure that the paint I'm applying is thinner, so the color transitions are a little less dramatic. You can just use water from your cup. I also spend some time painting little rapid strokes along the edges to give it a more rough cloth appearance. This model doesn't have a lot of natural texture to it, so I'll create my own in the painting stage. To highlight the wood, I'm using US olive drab, but mixing it with buff in a 1-to-1 ratio. For the torso and shoes, I'm going back with the amaranth, heavily thinned out so it just tints the areas I'm painting. Same spots as the previous round of highlights, but a smaller area so the previous coat shows through around the edges. For the hat, I edge highlight with a little black-red and buff mixed together. and then one last round of feathering with the tank crew gray. And here it is all finished, full of hops, ochre, and copper piping. Ready for the tabletop after just a light dry brush of tan earth on the base and some static grass. I've been trying to work on my bright and smooth color transitions lately, so this project was pretty heavy on glaze medium. When a model is short on detail, it's up to your brush work to really make it sing. Thanks for watching. If you like painting minis, then be sure to like and subscribe. Till next time, thanks again, and happy painting.